All right, Adelise. Adelise, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
From Worcester, Massachusetts.
Tell me about your family.
So my family, I have a huge family, but not, I ended up not speaking to them anymore a few years ago. So I just have like immediate family. I have my mom, my sister, and my stepdad, and I have two children. I have two boys.
You do? Mm-hmm. How old are you?
Soon to be 16 years old, so I had him really young.
How old are you?
I'm 31. I'll be 32.
So you started young.
Yeah, so I got pregnant at 15, had him at 16, and I have another one who he's going to be 4 in November, so he's 3.5 right now. So I waited a long time before I had my next one.
And you're separated from your entire family, or?
Pretty much, yes. Just didn't see the same way. So I'm kind of like the black sheep out of the family. So the majority of my family are kind of like gangbangers, into like violence, and just not educated or anything like that. So in order to like up my life or to get better, I just don't speak to those people anymore.
You had to separate yourself.
Yeah, I had to separate myself for sure.
And what was your childhood like? I mean, how would you describe it?
Extremely painful. It was filled with violence and abuse. Honestly, I wouldn't call it a childhood. I would call it, I was surviving. I've been in survival mode my whole entire life. I'm still learning how to get out of survival mode, but I've been in survival mode. I think from the moment that I can remember is 2 years old.
What kind of things were going on that you?
So it's a really big story, but I was getting abused from the age of 2 to the age of 14 by multiple people.
When you say abused, you mean?
Sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, but I mean, abused hardcore, but sexually abused hardcore. So my first memory starts at 3 years old with my stepfather, who is also my uncle because it's my sister's dad. So it's my sister's dad, who is also my uncle. So it's my dad's brother. So my first memory starts at 3 years old, being abused sexually, and it just went on from there. So when I tell people my story, a lot of people think it's like 1 or 2, 3 times I've been abused, but it was an everyday thing my whole childhood at 6, 7, 8, 9. It was an everyday thing.
What kind of teenager were you?
I wanted to be a police officer, so I was a pretty good teenager. I did teenager things. I did smoke weed, drank a tiny bit, but majority, that was put on me by one of my closest friends. It wasn't really my thought process. My thought process was more along the lines of being a really good person. I didn't want to be in trouble or anything like that. I wanted to be a good person.
Your family, you had siblings.
Yes, I have one sister.
That's the only one? Mm-hmm. How did she fare in all of this?
So she didn't go through the amount of things that I've went through. She did have physical abuse, emotional abuse. To my knowledge and from what she has expressed to me, she has never been sexually abused, which is great. But we had 2 totally different lives, completely different lives. And I just came out with this information to the world a year ago, actually. I posted my story on TikTok. I posted it on TikTok after being quiet for so many years because I went to the police to make a police report. I just finished graduating the police academy, so I felt like I was going to be a phony police officer because I want to help people, but I never helped myself. So I was like, I can't be a police officer if I haven't helped myself yet, So I went to the police and I made a police report, met with the DA, and pretty much after months of investigating, they said that there's not enough information to put any of the people there's 5 people that I reported, and none of the information was enough to sustain some prosecution towards them,
And these are all in your family?
So, majorities from the family. One is not from my family. So I was abused by my stepfather from the age of 2 to 10, and then we ended up leaving that place because of a lot of physical abuse. The police came and we ended up being homeless. I was in a shelter for about a year, and then I lived with my aunt in the projects for about a year. But it was also during that time with my stepfather was my stepbrother and my other stepbrother. So he has 3 sons. He has 3 boys. Out of the 3, one was in the army, really good guy, never did anything to me. The other 2 abused me, and he abused me from the age of like 2 to 10. And then after that, it was my mom's ex-boyfriend. After we moved out, we were in a hotel, and being in a shelter, she met a guy who ended up abusing me severely as well, like extremely, extremely bad for a few years, like 1 or 2 years. And then my whole story is extremely sad, but I ended up meeting my father, who left when I was like 2 years old. I met him when I was 13 years old. I flew to Puerto Rico all by myself. I met my father all by myself for the first time. The first month with him, I spent like a month and a half with him. The first month with him was the dream. He took me on my first motorcycle ride. He took me to see Daddy Yankee. He was just like the dream father, the father figure that I always wanted. He was so sweet, kind, attentive, cooked for me, was amazing. Until one night where he abused me in his bedroom. He did it one night, yeah, he did it one time. So my story got worse from there. So I was abused my whole life by all these different people. Finally met my father, and my father also abused me.
It never quits.
It never quit, yeah. So I haven't been abused. My life has been, I think, since I got pregnant, since I was 15. It stopped when I was 14. But since I was like 15, I've been on a path of healing and a path of, trying to get past what has happened to me.
And how have you done that?
I've done that by just staying positive and hopeful, and just seeing the joys of life. Like, I really like nature. I love the moon. I love the clouds. I am amazed to be a human. Like, I love being me, but it sucks that we have people like this around us. And I fought really hard. I'm still in survival mode at this moment. I fight every day to not be the statistics, because statistics say I should be doing drugs, I should be getting abused, or be an abuser. I should be I do have depression and stuff like that, but I should be really depressed or like in an asylum or something based on what I've been through. Because what I've been through, to be honest, I believe it's close to war. I was in war for my whole childhood. So it's every day is a fight to be a good person.
And drugs have never been something you've gone to?
No. I was forced to do drugs at like 6. Crack, I was forced to do crack. I seen drugs. I was in the DARE program. Drugs have never been an issue for me because I just don't know. I'm not going to say anything about other people. I just don't know how they get into it, if they know how bad it is. Like, I know it's terrible. But drugs have never been an issue for me, or being violent or anything like that. I've been the opposite of everything that I grew up with. I'm literally the opposite.
Yeah. And how are you supporting yourself?
I'm a photographer right now and a nanny. So I've been in and out of jobs my whole life, from like working at CVS at 18, working at Blockbuster at 20, working at a nursing home. But right now, my career, where I'm going, I am a nanny, and I do want to be a really famous photographer. I do want to go down that line. I'm not sure for what, but I'm a portrait photographer right now, so I love doing portraits.
And you have the father of your children with you?
So my first child, his father got deported 3 months after I got pregnant to Guatemala. So he was never inside his child's life. He has come back and forth into the U.S. illegally, and I tried to let him be a father, but he got deported again, twice actually, because he was, I guess, a drunk apparently, or something like that. So he has not been his life. And then my current child, we have a good co-parenting relationship right now. It did not work long term. And that's because I just got diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago. And I think that was a major concern for our relationship, is not understanding my emotions and how to deal with them and stuff like that. And I learned it was ADHD. But I think it has to do with my childhood, but they're calling it ADHD.
What is the hardest part of your life now? I mean, you don't have to support your family.
The hardest part of my life is not thinking about the past. I do have a lot of nightmares and fears. I am pretty fearful, honestly, for my children and for myself, just being out in the open about this. I am putting myself out there. So if my abusers were to come across any of this information, they could try to retaliate or hurt me or my family. So it's just been me dealing with that.
If you had your life to live over again, would you have done things differently?
Um,
I mean, you were so young when the abuse was happening, you couldn't really do that.
So the thing is, I was terrified. My first abuser was my stepfather. He's the epitome. He is what the devil is. He's really, really evil, like extremely scary of a person. So I just lived in fear. But if I could live my life over again, I wish I did speak to the people around me. So there were many, many, many times that I wanted to tell my teachers, right? But my teachers were so oblivious to what was going on. Like I had slashes on my back from being hit with a belt, and like I had marks, bruises, and just my personality. And there were many times where I would look at my teacher and hope that they would see through me. One of my favorite books actually is called A Child Called It. Pretty much my life was like that type of abuse, but I wouldn't say worse, but maybe worse because of my sexual abuse, you know. It wasn't just little stuff. I was getting like extreme abuse, like tied up, penetrated with things that were way too large for me, like really extreme abuse. So I think the hardest part about being myself is not, like, people don't know who I actually am. So this whole time I felt like I've been a lie. I've never been my true self because my true self is my past and no one knew about my past.
Are you able to have relationships with men after everything you've been through?
Yeah, for sure. Men are great. There still are great men out there. I'm just a little bit more cautious with myself and what I bring to the table. So I'm fine with men, have had healthy relationships. I've never been abused. I've never been even cussed at. I've had really good partners, but just I knew in the end they weren't long-term partners. They weren't like my soulmate. Is the reason why we would break up. Never had any violence on my side. I wouldn't allow it, which is, I think, very different because a lot of people, they've been around abuse, so abuse is easy to be around. I refuse to be around that type of environment.
What do you go through emotionally?
It's tough. It's really tough. I have major depression. I have anxiety. I have a binge eating disorder. So I use food as a coping mechanism. I love food. I think it's really, really tough, to be honest, going through what I've been through. And I hear a lot of people tell me, like, oh, it's in your past, move past it, or like there's nothing you can do. Like they just don't understand the how your brain develops after being abused for your whole childhood. Not by one person, but by multiple people. And then the people that are supposed to be the ones that take care of you, of course. So like it is definitely, it's very, very traumatizing. And no amount of healing, honestly, would ever take away that pain. But I know it, as time goes by, it does get easier. And now that I'm open and speaking about it, I feel like a new person and I feel way stronger than I ever felt.
Yeah, you're very strong.
Thank you. I'm just really surprised by how everything has moved. Like I posted it on TikTok and I've reached millions of people around the world. I've had women, men message me and tell me that I've changed their life just by speaking up. I've helped them gain the courage to speak up. Some have spoke to the police, some have spoke to family, some have just been inner healing because of me just speaking up. So that's why I'm pretty much here. I want to speak up and I want people to know that it's never too late to speak up. And I do want them to know in that moment, there may be a lot of fear for you where you may, you're fearing that you're gonna not speak to your mother or you're gonna upset someone, but I promise it's better to speak then than to wait till later, until it's too late. Like in my case, they can't be arrested apparently based on the information that's provided. So I just want people to not be so scared of speaking up, because the help in that moment is going to be better than staying stuck in that environment where they can get hurt, they can possibly get killed, or just never really heal from that.
Aideliz, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned?
The most important lesson is never, like, it's to keep your mind open on why other people are behaving the way that they're behaving.
That's great.
Because you never know what they're going through. Me, I was the shy little nerd, little weird girl, but I was only that way because of the things that was happening in my life. Teachers, friends, no one knew. I was a smiling person, right? My pictures, my photos were all smiling, but I was being severely, severely abused, and I kept on smiling. So you may see someone smiling, but that doesn't mean that's exactly how they feel. So that's my biggest lesson. When I see people now, I always think deeper. I never, like, if let's say I'm walking and I get pushed, I'm not gonna react to that. I may be like, oh, maybe they're in a rush to like a funeral, or maybe they have to go use the bathroom or something. I always think deeper about how people are.
Yeah, it's really great. All right, Aideliz, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wish you lots of luck from here. You're very brave.
Thank you.
Thank you.